Smoke Pit Podcast, everyone. With you as often as you'll have me, I'm Jamie Goldstein. I'm joined here today by a gentleman whose work I admire quite tremendously. You probably know him best as Thorny from Super Troopers. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Chandrasekhar. Jay, welcome to the Smoke Pit.
The Smoke Pit. Thank you.
The Smoke Pit.
Is it because you guys smoke meats?
Yeah,
Or do you
that's
smoke cigarettes.
yeah, that's what we smoke, meat.
Oh, you smoke weed?
No, it's a military term actually.
Is it the place where they burn all the ammunition?
Oh, those are the burn pits.
Oh,
Those fun little
that's
things that are
different.
giving us all cancer nowadays. No, it's like the you go to a fob or a base or even on post, stateside, wherever service members like hang out, congregate, smoke cigarettes, tell stories.
Got it.
That's the smoke pit. So,
Okay.
being like, kind of a military themed show, that's what we
Sure.
want. Yeah.
Cool.
So you're an accomplished guy, man. You formed the comedy troupe that would ultimately become Broken Lizard. You led your team through movies like Beer Fest and Club Dread and Slam and Salmon. But I think what you're best known for is Super Troopers. Yeah.
Who wants a mustache ride?
I do. I want a mustache ride.
I can grow it pretty quick.
Really? How fast? Because I'm not the quickest mustache grower in the world. The beard comes in pretty well, but it takes a while for the stash to
If
round
we're
out.
making a movie, I only really need about 5 weeks to get it pretty great. But I don't actually put myself on screen without an 8-week mustache.
I love it.
I don't need it, but I just
Well, no one needs it, but it's good to have. It's
I think
like
so.
a little security blanket,
I think
you can
so. Yeah.
kind of twirl. I had to wear a mustache once in my life, and it was for my writing, acting, and directorial debut on something called a Grunt's Life. And man, I was not sure about it. I've been wearing a beard for years, and I felt like I was naked without it. But after a couple of days, my God, it grew on me. It grew on me.
It's what's interesting is that there's a certain type of woman who approaches you at kind of grocery stores and mini marts, and there's something about that mustache and those kind of places that connect. And I find myself in vaguely sexual conversations in those arenas a little more.
With just absolute strangers who just want to
strangers.
know. Yeah.
They're just drawn to my mustache, and I'm like, they don't even see the movies. They're just like, oh, hello.
Wow. There's this magnetic attraction.
But it's only in those places. So,
grocery stores, laundromats, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My girlfriend's been breaking my chops to grow it back or to take the beard back down for a while or maybe for our anniversary. I don't know. We'll see. So
for your anniversary, you'll have a mustache?
Hey, man, who wants a mustache ride, right?
I guess so.
So starting off a comedy troupe, man, that's a pretty niche interest. You've got the classics like the Three Stooges, Monty Pythons, the Marx Brothers. You got some more recent ones like Lonely Island, Kids in the Hall. I might even dare to call the Wayans Brothers a comedy troupe. What made you want to do that? Like what piqued your interest in such a tight comedy circle?
Well, I mean, it was I was raised on Monty Python and Saturday Night Live, which is also a comedy group.
Sure.
And so, and I'm from Chicago, where Second City sort of fed that whole original Saturday Night Live scene.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me, I mean, it is the purest form of comedy, because not only did those Saturday Night Live kind of, I mean, Python was doing what it was doing in England, which included George Harrison funding. I think it was Life of Brian.
Oh wow!
He was one of the funders of that, and so there was a hipness to it. But Saturday Night Live, turned into, Animal House to some degree, and the Blues Brothers, and Caddyshack. They're all
Wayne's World.
outgrowths of Saturday Night Live, and so yeah, Boys World, of course. But I mean, back then when we were growing up, you're like, oh, they were on that show, and then they made that movie, and then they made that movie, and then they made that movie, and it felt to me like, I'm a bit of a comedy purist, I suppose. Like I wanted to go for the purest, funniest, best version of it, and it felt to me like a group was that. Now that said, I've been doing stand-up since I was 19. So,
Sure.
Eddie Murphy when I was 15 at Delirious at the Chicago Theater, and I was like, "That's a job, huh?" And so, I still do stand-up, which is also a very pure comedic art form, but it's just, it doesn't link to the movies in the same way that obviously Eddie Murphy did and Richard Pryor, but it doesn't link the same movies in the same way that the comedy group did.
Nice.
Python to me was it. I was like, if we could create a group that does sketches and then short films, and then maybe we can go up to like real movies where we're in multiples. But the plan ended up working out because I think we've made, I don't even know, 8, 9 movies or something.
A nice little handful. I know it wasn't the first one you guys made, but the first one I saw was Super Troopers. And man, did that leave an impression. I grew up on Long Island. I was that dumb kid in the car on road trips, maybe with some shit they shouldn't have had, getting pulled over. And, I was kind of a smart ass. My friends were, like to be cute too. So we had some pretty entertaining exchanges with cops. So, I mean, watching that, there was this relatability to it that I think everyone could kind of feel. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, if you're listening out there, don't be a smart ass to cops. It's not a good strategy.
No.
I mean, they got a tough job. They're dealing with all the people we're afraid of. But yeah, they're not afraid of you guys, I'm sure. But that said, at the end of the day, we're in Vermont, and we gone to a wedding on the border of Vermont. Like there was a lake at the wedding, and you could swim across. You did canoe really across the lake, and then you were in Canada, like in Canadian waters. So we were driving around up there, and you're like, nothing happening here. But there were cops who were pulling people over. You're like, there must be. I mean, what is there? Like a maple syrup caper? Like there's nothing going on. And so we thought that could be a fun, I mean, because we were, we had jobs, but largely our focus in life was to smoke weed and crack jokes. We had, largely speaking, nothing going on. And, we were doing the jokes on stage, but we thought, how can we take the police equivalent of our doing nothing but smoking weed and hanging around and kind of meld them together?
Yeah.
And, we were big fans of the film Police, Naked Gun.
Oh my God. Yeah, with Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah. We were not fans of Police Academy.
Really?
The reason for me...
Well, they didn't age well, did they?
Well, there's a reason they didn't age well, and that was because, in my view, and look, the other guys love Police Academy, but I didn't like that the cops had their hats cocked, like the brim was sort of off.
Okay.
It wasn't straight, and they didn't look exactly like cops look. That to me is the whole joke. Like, if in the military, are there guys who wear their hats like pointed,
like
their brims
pointed? No way.
No way,
No.
right? So if you saw that, you'd be like, what is that? Why are they're doing that they think it's funny, I guess. Maybe it is funny, but it's not accurate. And so that the whole thing starts to crumble. You're like, well, a cop would never wear the hat like that. So then all these other jokes, I'm not even sure which ones to trust. And so now it's like, forget it. That was my very young view of Police Academy. I'm like, I never even saw it because of that. Because of that cocked hat. I'm like,
really?
No, I'm not watching it.
Wow.
It's like, this is a Bears hat. It's not the same, but imagine if I'm like,
right. Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not a cop. It's not a cop. And so I said to the guys when we made the movie, I'm like, we're not doing that. We're wearing our hats straight. We're going to have crew cuts. We're going to have fucking mustaches. We're going to get in shape, and we're going to look like cops, so that all the jokes after will be like, my God, those are real cops, or what is,
Right.
you want that. You want the
The
buy-in.
less disbelief you have to suspend, the better all the other jokes are gonna fly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow. And I noticed, like I said, Super Troopers was the first one that I saw. But then a couple years later, I was in Iraq, and I told my brother that we used to spend most of our downtime, like 7 or 8 guys crammed around these little DVD players, watching whatever we could get our hands on. And he did this a DVD drive at his school and sent me a giant box of DVDs. And in there was this little gem called Puddle Cruiser. And yeah, and I was like, "Oh my god, wait, that's them! Holy shit!" Uh, so, and that was fun, man. And I'm watching this, and I dropped out of college to go to Iraq, and just watching the experience and reminiscing about what life used to be like, and I'm like, I fucking stopped doing that to do this. What the fuck is wrong with me?
What the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, I appreciate the service. I really sincerely do. But you probably should have waited until you graduated.
No, if I did that, I would have been an officer, and that just would have ruined me, would have
Oh,
corrupted.
you mean if you come out as a college graduate, you go into sort of the officer training program?
You're qualified for it, so yeah. Very very rarely will they take like someone with a full on 4-year degree and go, yeah, you're going to be a dumb grunt. Go have
I
fun. Go
see.
dig a hole.
I see.
But and that's speaks to it again. Is that relatability is a common theme that I see in all the Broken Lizard movies. Is this stream of relatability. It's so cool because the stories that you guys tell are the kind of stories that people love to tell, the kind of stories that people love to hear. Someone's got that story about the craziest shit that ever happened to them getting pulled over, or the craziest stuff that they experienced in food services or on vacation at a resort. And you take these stories, you stretch them for 120 minutes, and you tie it off in a way that, number A, leaves people wanting more, and letter 2 makes them want to hear the story again. So it really creates this.
Well, yeah, I mean, the stories are often real things that happen to us or to somebody we know, and then we try to lay them onto the movie and then kind of build them out from there. I mean, like, there's a joke in Puddle Cruiser where I mean, this happened to the two characters in the movie are Kevin and Steve. They're dueling for women, basically. They're trying to like, and the origin of that was in New York City when Steve and I were there. Steve Lemmy and I, we would go to bars 7 days a week, and so we were in the back of this bar, Richter's, all the time, and all these like new people, girls from Vassar and Trinity and whatever would come, and we'd meet them, and then Steve and I would then duel the rest of the night for whatever that particular girl was. We'd always end up going for the same one, and when the other one got up, you'd start kind of trashing him and making fun of him, and he's really short. He's like as tall as he's like 5'6". Just making fun of him constantly. Have you ever been with a little guy like that? Like those kind of things. And so at the end of the night, the two of us would almost always leave alone because we'd so trash the other guy that and so we came up with this joke, which was like, two guys are talking to a girl. One of the guys goes to the bathroom, and the guy who stays is like, "Oh, all right, you and Garbage Dick, huh?" Oh. He's like, "Garbage Dick?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's just a nickname. I mean, with penicillin, I mean, that stuff is in the past. Like, I wouldn't worry too much about it, right?" And then and so it was, eventually what happened was he and I had to make a truce. And we stopped competing for women, and we would just kind of, if somebody was already flirting with her, you're like, all right, that's it.
Okay.
The other guy was out.
You agreed to be gentlemen about it.
Well, it wasn't working. It was not working to trash each other because we're both, sharp-tongued comics, so the insults were deep.
Yeah, I'll bet. No, it's funny. I had this guy in my platoon that I served with. His name was Daniel Lafergie, but we called him Danny Venom. The joke being that he's had so many STDs at this point that he was venomous. And it was the same thing. If he was talking to a girl, he's like, "Oh shit, you and Danny Venom, huh? Why do you call him that?" Well, why? uh, so the writing room on these projects must be absolutely amazing.
Well, there are five hand-picked funny people in the room who are all capable, and so there's no weak link. The conversations are, you know, are 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 often really funny, and what ends up on the screen is always a version of the joke because we push it way further than we end up because you're like, it gets really, you know, I mean, we've known each other since we were 18. So it gets dark, it gets racial, it gets sexual, it gets violent, it gets insane. And then we distill it down to whatever we think fits into a nice R-rated movie that's still the pure version of the joke, but we're not using all the nastiness that we came up with. It's
Yeah.
written down on a piece of paper somewhere. These things, but they don't. Some jokes just never quite make it.
Well, I mean, I guess working with like you said, five hand selected, really funny people, it offers an air of consistency to what you guys do, and so on
Yeah,
that note, actually, I mentioned the Wayans brothers earlier. You watch a Wayans brothers movie, you can generally count on one of two things: a woman taking a horrific shit, or white folks dropping N bombs. Um, Broken Lizard, I absolutely love that you guys tend to use like nudity as a form of slapstick. Um, and so so first off, you got to convince them that it's going to be valuable to the scene and valuable to the movie. And second, I guess it requires a certain level of belief in the project from the actor, and a trust in their director. They have to trust in you that their vulnerability is going to translate to comedy, uh, for the sake of the project. So, I mean, what's that like?
well, there are two kinds of nudity, right? There's the kind of nudity that Kevin Heffernan showed his dick on, and I have showed my full body butt on and whatever. And then there's the sexual nudity, which is more, like Jordan Ladd showed her boobs in Club Dread, but she also did several flips, like in the movie, and there are sex scenes. There's like the three-way in Super Troopers where Maria Thornburg is topless, but it's this, like the movies are a bit of a, like they're a little bit of a attempting to sort of fit into the category of films like Animal House and Fish Called Wanda. Like it's if you think about them from like entertainment perspective, we're trying to tell jokes, smart jokes, funny jokes, dirty jokes, and so we're trying to entertain that way. We're also these movies that I just referenced. Also, we're trying to entertain people sexually and get guys, or women who are into women, like who are from the ages of like 12 to 70, right, to be turned on by the nude scene in this movie. And so, and then we're doing these other nude piece elements, which is like us nude. And so, from a sexism perspective, I feel, and so do the other guys, that fuck, if we're going to show women naked, we should show men naked.
Hey,
And
equal
so
opportunity, man.
it's an equality thing. And we don't want to give up the sexual side of it. Look, there's a movement in Hollywood to, take the fun out of the movies. And with the Broken Lizard guys, it's like, what's the funniest version of this joke? Well, it's that you're nude next to a dead deer because you got so drunk that you ate its throat out in the middle of the night. I mean, it's an homage to American Werewolf in London. he
Yeah.
was naked, and so you're like, well, he was naked, so what are you going to do? Not be naked? Like, how do we do an homage if you're not willing to be naked?
Right.
And so it's a little bit of a, you go, particularly with my group of guys, we go where the joke is, or don't make the joke.
Ah, follow the joke or don't.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
the audience is going to be like, American Werewolf in London, that guy was nude, but Jay's got clothes on.
Yeah. The people who get the reference are going to go, they didn't go full send with it.
What's he trying to say? He's just too good for that?
Yeah, really. You're not too good to spoon naked with a dead deer.
I'm not. I'm not.
Well, it works every time, man, because that shit is gold. But in spite of the success and cult classic status, Super Troopers didn't fare well on Rotten Tomatoes, man, and I understand that kind of struck a chord with you.
Well, yeah. So Rotten Tomatoes is named for throwing rotten fruit at filmmakers.
Sure.
It's in the title. Now, in their defense, it started as an internet joke, right? They're like, there are all these Oscars and whatever. Why don't we create a thing for bad movies so people know when a movie's bad? Well, that turned into this aggregator of reviewers for good movies, right? So now they're like, if you're a good movie, you get a fresh rating. And you're like, first of all, who wants to eat fresh tomatoes just sitting there eating tomatoes? No, they're not apples, right? They're like, first of all, that's flawed too. I understand throwing a rotten fruit at a I guess in some version of the theater, maybe they threw rotten fruit at people. I mean, I don't know where that came from, but it's not polite. Because we take 2 years to make this fucking movie, and someone's like, man, thumbs down. Okay, that's fine. I don't care if you don't like the movie. I really don't care. What I care about is the aggregation of all these reviewers around the country, and then you can turn that into a number. People aren't even reading the reviews. It's just like, what's it get? 36% fresh? Meh, I'm out. Right. And the reality is Caddyshack was poorly reviewed. Animal House was poorly reviewed. Blues Brothers, poorly reviewed. These are like classic films in our culture. And if you some films are poorly reviewed and they die because of it. Like the audience is like, well, I'll skip it, or maybe I'll see it on video, or maybe I won't see it at all. What a terrible, aggregate score. Now, if you look at the aggregate, you're like, well, it's 90 people, right? 90 people gave Super Troopers a 35% fresh rating, 90 reviewers. And I'm like, who are these people, right? Like, were they in the military? Did they go to college? Do they drink? Do they smoke weed? Do they like R-rated movies? We don't know any of them, right? We don't know. Like, I got a review for Beer Fest from a woman who had a site called Grandma's Reviews out of Arizona. And Grandma said, I didn't like Beer Fest because there's too much drinking in it. And you're like, Grandma, that's the movie.
What were you doing at Beer Fest, Grandma?
It's an ode to binge drinking. But that takes us down to 35%. And you're like, so they're strangers, right? They're literally strangers giving their opinions. And I'm like, when's the last time you walked up to a stranger on the street and said, hey, stranger, what movie should I see? That's what we're doing with Rotten Tomatoes, but it's 90 of them. There's no way to judge a movie. By the way, later, after about a year or two of Super Troopers getting on that Rotten Tomato site, 200,000 civilians rated it a 90% fresh rating. Right, but I'm stuck with this 36%, which depresses the theatrical audience by millions, right? So I decided to get revenge, and
Let's hear about it.
16 years I've been like stewing, and I talked to like John Hamburg, who made Meet the Parents, and he's like fucking Rotten Tomatoes. Like I talked to an actor named I think it was Josh Peck, and a reviewer said about him in a comedy that he is a pretty good actor for someone with special needs. And you're like, you know what, dude? Fuck you. So like people in my business are
wow.
Yeah. People in my business are like making movies and taking chances. And these people who are sitting in their basements with their mothers upstairs are like, meh, meh. And it's not that they're not entitled to their opinions, but again, when's the last time you walked up to a stranger and said, "What movie should I see?" It's a lazy scenario that we're listening to Rotten Tomatoes. So, the 4 years ago, I started to outline what would be an app that would change the way recommendations are done. Right? Not
Yeah.
just for movies, for books, television, coffee cups, telephones, lip balm, cars, restaurants, wine, weed, any of it, right? So me and these two guys, Eli and Eric, built a machine. It's an app. It's called Vouch Vault, and the premise is it's basically Instagram of recommendations. So if you sign up to Vouch Vault, Apple, Android, whatever, follow me, you'll get it right away, right? You'll see, I like the Blues Brothers. I like this book, Cinderella's Story, which is about the making of Caddyshack. I like this restaurant Teru down the street in Studio City. It's a sushi restaurant. I like this TV show called The Great about Catherine the Great. So now, if you follow people whose taste you trust, like me, you go, oh, I can learn about all these new shows. This show called Reboot on Hulu. Really funny. Johnny Knoxville's in it. And more than just following me, because I'm a stranger to you too, right? But you kind of know what kind of stuff I like.
Sure. I mean, you might be a
all,
stranger. Like we don't go over to each other's
yeah,
houses or anything, but I know that I like your brand of comedy.
right. So you can kind of trust
Yeah.
that. But
yeah, if you vouch for something being funny, I'm inclined to believe you, and it's probably going to be right.
That's right.
Yeah.
But more valuable is if you and your friends from the army or wherever, whose taste you really know and trust, get on it and be like, this movie, this book, this TV show, this restaurant is great. They've got great hot dogs. It's a way to take recommendations and put them into the mouths of the people that you trust.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, I got on there. New platform. I've only got one follower so far.
I'll follow you.
Thanks for the ad.
Oh, me. Oh, good.
It's you. But no, it's absolutely incredible, and it's cool being able to, especially like I said, people who, if I know somebody, even if they are still a stranger, like, okay, this director here, I like their style. So, if they dig this movie, this is probably pretty good. It enhances the value and the merit of a recommendation, even if it is a stranger, if you're familiar with their work and you appreciate their work.
It's like when Quentin recommends like Hong Kong action. You're like, you read about his stuff in an article in a paper or the internet. Oh, Quentin likes this movie. But if he has, I got to call him and get him to sign up. But if he has a Vouch Vault handle, it'll just be sitting there forever, right? And you can go Quentin Tarantino, look up entertainment, and you'll see all the movies he recommends, and they'll just be sitting there. So, like when you go to a dinner party and someone's like, there's a really funny show about 1840s trappers on BBC Three, and you're like, sounds good, right? And you type it into your phone and you lose it. You don't know where it is. This app has the thing, a tri vault, it's called. So if you tell me about this show, I'm like, okay, I write it down in the tri vault. It's just sitting there. So on Friday, when I'm like, what should we watch? You're like, go in the tri vault. You're like, oh yeah, that show about 1840s rappers.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And there it is. And you go, okay, boom, 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 boom. You're watching.
That's so brilliant, because how many times do you say like, oh, really? Oh, okay, I got to try that restaurant.
Yeah,
or, oh, you know what? We
right.
should watch that movie this weekend. And then this weekend rolls around. It's like, what was that movie we were going to watch?
Who knows?
And then you end up going to Burger King and watching Parks and Rec again.
There you go.
No, it's cool being able to memorialize those recommendations and reference them. And like, yep, it's there. Sick.
Yeah.
Man.
And we got about, I think we've got about 7,000-8,000 people on it right now. And we're just going to try to, it's behavior changing is the goal. And it's hard to change people's behavior, but it's really, once the people start to see it, they're like, oh yeah,
Sure.
What's the best cheeseburger in Los Angeles, right? So if you I'll put it in there and I'll go hashtag Los Angeles, hashtag cheeseburger. And when you come to Los Angeles, you're like, you look up hashtag Los Angeles, hashtag cheeseburger, and all the best cheeseburgers will come up. And you're like, well, that's easy.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely start recommending or vouching for, restaurants in my area. So if you're ever in the Metro DC area, you know where to go.
Yeah. The most vouched for restaurant on our platform is a barbecue place in Virginia.
Really?
Well, because this guy Chad Dukes was on it, and he's a radio guy out of Northern Virginia. I'll figure it out, but I mean, it's like his followers love this barbecue place.
Okay.
Love it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, if it's Northern Virginia, I can't possibly be too far. I'll have to go check it out. See?
Yeah.
Thanks, Vouch Vault.
Boom.
I love it, man. I love it. I can't wait. I can't wait for that to develop and really gain traction. That's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I don't know how it'll end up. The movies, I'm like, they come out and a lot of people will go, or some people will go, or no people will go, and then it'll become a hit on video because they all do. Generally, an audience finds them generally. But with this, you're like, I've never done it before. It's exciting.
Nice.
I mean, the guys I'm working with have done it before, but I'm on a ride where I'm like, what's next? What's gonna,
You're just you're just following them and hoping that they're leading you in the right direction.
Well, I'm out there evangelizing for it and getting people to sign up, but it's like we're building it, right? Like we're gonna add video, and then we're gonna,
Cool.
there are all sorts of things to do,
Nice. Well, best of luck with that, man. Really, I wish you the best of luck. I think it's gonna be big.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So what else you got going on? I think Broken Lizard is in production on a new movie right now. Yeah.
Well, we're in the final edit. We're mixing the sound on a 12th century French movie where I play the King of France and Steve Lemmy plays a hunchback of Notre Dame, and Paul Soter plays the Pope. And it's a classic church versus state, king versus pope, with a hunchback in the middle. British accents for the rich people. It's at times you're in a scene and you're like, we're in a Lost Python movie, which is interesting because I know the Python purists will be like, they're not as good as Python, and that's okay. Like we don't really care. It's gonna be a 10th movie. We're over it. Python only made 4 or 5 movies, by the way. But anyway, I worship at the feet of Python. But that said, it's a full-on sword and sandal movie with with blood and funny and jokes, and it was fun. It's going to come out on Hulu, I believe, right around 4/20.
Sounds fitting.
We're trying to sort of dominate the holiday. Super Troopers came out on 4/20.
I remember.
And we're gonna, Super Troopers 3. We're meeting on it on Friday. We got about 9, 10 drafts done.
And that's the Winter Soldiers, right?
Winter Soldiers. We'll see. I've been scouting in Vancouver, and it's cold as fuck out here. The other guys are like, "Are you sure you want to shoot a movie in winter?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it'll be great." But boy, I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm attached to this idea of like icicles and the mustaches and going. I like that.
I love it. So I got to ask, like, what is? I mean, Super Troopers is hands down one of the easily most quotable, referenceable movies of our time. What was your favorite line from that movie? Is there one line in particular that just sticks with you that you still love to say to this day from that film?
It stinks like sex in here.
Okay, fair enough. It's a lot of practical applications for that one. I'll give you that.
You know when you walk into a room and it stinks like sex?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Do I remember it? Back in the day, rooms used to smell like sex when I walked in.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. You never, people know, but they never.
Yeah, you kids don't know about
They
that.
never. People don't mention it, but they all know about it. Those are the best kinds of jokes when people are like, "Oh yeah, wait, did he just say it?" And ultimately, like that movie wasn't in the script. It was those guys were stuck, and we were we were opening the door, and luckily it happened to come to me. I mean, I don't know what can I say. I got lucky. Like it was I literally came up with it right there, and it happens to be my favorite line in the movie.
I love that. No, that makes
the other
so
line
much
I
more
like,
enjoyable just knowing that about it.
yeah, the other line I love, which was in the script, which I didn't say, is when Farva is covered in powdered sugar, and he's talking to Grady, the local police chief. He says, "Tastes like sugar," and then the chief goes, "The lice hate the sugar," and then he goes, "It's delicious." I think
I do love that. I
that
love
is.
that. And I love that Grady got like almost a breath into what he was about to say
Yeah,
before
he's like,
he delivered it.
"It's
The
delicious."
timing on that was fucking expert. That was spectacular. It's
And
delicious.
that we wrote
And
it exactly like that. I mean, it's meant for Grady to start speaking, and he interrupts. One more thing. One more thing.
And just the sincerity note that he
Yeah.
hit was top shelf, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one last question about Super Troopers. How I was stunned, watching that when the movie's going on, and I'm like, that's fucking Brian Cox. How'd you get him on board?
Brian, when he started, thought he was going to have a career like Jerry Lewis. He really believed in his heart that was going to be his calling, and then he ended up the serial killer in Manhunter or whatever that was. I think it was Red Line, or I don't know. It was the original Hannibal Lecter, and he was played King Lear in St. Petersburg, Russia, and he ended up going down this other road, and so his agent heard about this movie, and they were like, "What about Brian Cox? He wants to do it," and we're like the Brian Cox,
Yeah,
the same
right.
Brian Cox,
Yeah, don't fuck with me on this. Come on.
and we were like, they're like, "Yeah, he wants to." I'm like, "Okay, wow, that's so interesting." And we basically, he we offered him the part, and he said, "Yeah, well, I'll do it."
Wow.
I will to be totally frank with you, we made one attempt at Bill Murray.
Really?
And I called his agent at CAA, where I was at the time, and so it was an easy call. And she's like, "Look, Jay, I will show this to Bill. However, he only calls in to my office when he feels like it, and it's usually once every 4 to 6 months. And if I'm not at my desk, I got to wait another 4 to 6 months. And he always calls from a payphone, so that I can't call him back." So she's like, "If I'm at my desk, when are you shooting?" I'm like, "This summer." And I said, "That's like 3 months." She goes, "If I'm at my desk in the next 2 months and he happens to call and you want to risk that, sure."
Wow.
And I was like, and then there's the money, which is below his quote.
Well,
And I was like,
to be Wes Anderson. I don't know.
okay. So then we moved on and hired Brian, who was incredible, and I think in a way, probably look, Bill Murray. He's never bad. He's always great. Would have been great, but Brian is a little more of a authority figure, kind of great. In the end, his incredible acting ability brought us up. Made us seem like maybe we were actors too.
Wow. You know, looking back, it's hard to imagine anyone else playing his role.
Yeah.
It really is.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And there's another kind of funny story about casting of that was that Dan Patrick, the ESPN guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mayor in the movie is played by a guy who was one of the tennis players in Trading Places. I don't know if you
Okay.
remember. There's a scene at a country club, and he's one of the tennis players, one of the rich wasp tennis players. Anyway, that wasn't the original. Like, we made the offer for that role to the ESPN guy, Dan Patrick, because we thought he was
Yeah.
super funny. Didn't know, if he'd never acted before, whatever, but he could probably handle it. And within a day or 2 days of making the offer, he said yes. And we were like, holy fucking shit, Dan Patrick's gonna be in this fucking movie. It's incredible. And they were like, great. The casting agent's like, great, got Dan Patrick. He needs a flight from Seattle. And we're like, okay. But he's willing to fly coach. And I'm like, Dan Patrick's willing to fly coach from, and what? He's in Seattle? And she's like, yeah, he lives in Seattle. And I'm like, isn't he up in Connecticut in the main office of ESPN? She goes, no, he's an actor. He lives in Seattle. I'm like, can I see a picture of Dan Patrick? And I'm like, that's not fucking Dan Patrick. And she goes, oh no, we've offered him the part. I'm like, well, we're not going to part that guy, Dan Patrick. And she goes, who are you talking about? I'm the guy on ESPN. And she goes, oh, that Dan Patrick. So we made an offer to that Dan Patrick, and he's like, I'm not doing this fucking movie. And so then we moved on. By the way, Dan Patrick's a big fan of ours now. Could have been in the movie, Dan. We still might put him in something if he's willing to be with us.
If you're playing coach.
He's not flying coach. But then we ended up with I can't remember the guy's name. He's such a funny guy. Anyway, whatever. It'll come to me.
I can see him with the shotgun.
Oh, he was hilarious.
Name.
Right? Spread it on.
Spread it on.
Yeah, that's right.
So listen, before I let you go, I'd like to read you some questions from the Pop Smoke Media community if you're game.
Definitely.
Outstanding. All right, let's see what we got here. Joshua Brock. Joshua Brock wants to know if you'll come over to his house for Thanksgiving.
Where does he live?
Oh gee, Josh, you didn't give me all the details, man. I can't help you out, I don't think.
I guess I can't come then, Josh.
Josh, you blew it.
Would have gone. I love turkey.
James Drake. Oh, he wants to know what's the name of that restaurant you like with all the goofy shit on the wall and the mozzarella sticks?
You mean Shenanigans?
Oh!
You're talking about Shenanigans, right?
Ryan Jackson asks, where the fuck is Weed Fest?
Well, it was a joke. We thought it'd be funny.
We took it as a promise.
So
now you owe us.
There are versions where we were like, at one point the draft said Coke Fest.
Oh God, Jesus, that's a jump.
We were into all sorts of stuff back then, but it was a joke, and then it caught on, and I feel like we do owe it. But what happened is the brass at Warner Brothers changed to a president who wasn't a fan. Who, because we were big with the previous president, he was like, well, you guys are out because I can't put you in stuff because it'll make it look like I'm not creative. Okay. But now there are two new people who are in charge of Warner Brothers, and one of them is my buddy. But so I'm waiting for the dust to settle over there because Discovery bought Warner Brothers, and they've been on like a cost-cutting thing where they're canceling shows and not releasing movies, and I think what they're doing is sort of paring down to eventually pair back up because they're the great Warner Brothers. So at some point, I'm going to go to them and say, for a very reasonable price, you can have a full 2-hour movie that is got some, or we'll open it on 420. We got some. Oh yeah. There's an audience out there.
Oh, a built-in fan base immediately.
Yeah.
Shane Border asks, "What's a ZJ?"
If you have to ask Shane, you can't afford it.
Sorry, Shane. Shane, different Shane's. Shane's Boswini wants to know if you'll show him how to swing and maybe do some brown magic also.
Okay.
Michael T. Henry asks, how many times have you drunk a full bottle of syrup and how strong was that sugar high?
Well, I drank 2.5 bottles when we did it, and I directed the film, so I made Eric drink 3.5. And afterwards we lunch happened, but you couldn't. You felt out of control. Like the sugar was so much that you felt. Well, first of all, we both went into the bathroom and tried to throw it up, but syrup was too thick. It wasn't coming up. And so
it's fucking gross.
We realized we were going to have to ride it out.
Oh my God. Just going to ride the dragon.
Yeah, it was bad. And we went into my trailer and turned the light out and laid on the ground and just shook for the entire lunch. And then at the end of that, he got to go back to the hotel, and I had to shoot another scene, which was, by the way, a sex scene with me and my wife, and which didn't end up in the movie. It's like a lost scene, and I'm in bed with her, and it's like it's fine, but it's not fine.
You're powering through a diabetic shock.
Yes. And when I got back to the hotel, I saw Eric, and he's like, "Taking a shit yet?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "There's a reason syrup is part of the cleanse." And I was like, and he goes, "I want to know what comes out of you." And I went in the bathroom, and frankly, everything that was in there came out. Like I saw like a fossilized robin fetus from the late 90s was in there. Like it was horrifying. And then finally you get it all out. You're like, "Oh, I'm never doing that again. Never doing that again." But Olivia Munn, who's like this really talented babe, beautiful actress, had me on her talk show a while back, and she's like, "We're doing a syrup chug," and like it's sort of like if a hot girl comes up to you at a bar with shots, you do them.
You're doing the shot.
Or the bartender is hot and it's a woman. She's like, "Single or a double?" I'm like, "Obviously a double," even though you don't want it. But so Olivia Munn, I'm like, "I'll do this, but we got to get sugarless maple syrup," because I said, "You don't want what's going to happen here." And so we did that, and it was still rough. I mean, it was still like it cleaned you out as well, but it wasn't the sugar high.
Right. And then I'm sure there's some element of like PTSD that comes along with it. Like you're
not doing it again.
Back.
Not doing it again. Ain't going back to Shawshank.
Oh, fair enough. Jay, thank you so much, man. This has been absolutely amazing. This was a blast.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, this was a lot of fun. This is really insightful, and really appreciate you sharing with us, man.
All right, cool. Thanks.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jamie.
Absolutely. It's good talking with you.
Yep.
Take care.